10th Parliament created what is called Pastoralist Leadership Forum. The 11th Parliament, because of devolution, transformed the Pastoralist Leadership Forum to summit. When they met for the first leadership summit in Narok in 2015 to bring in county leadership. The second conference in Isiolo, and the third one, which was for the 12th Parliament in Mombasa, basically just an induction for new members. This particular conference in Garissa for 2019, the theme was on peace, security, and enhancing socio-economic development.
Because peace is the foundation for development.
Your Excellency, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the Pastoralist Forum and to be among the pastoralists of this country. There is real potential in pastoralism. We have faced challenges in the past. We seem to be overcoming them now. In devolution and in the county governments, we have an opportunity to revitalize that sector of our economy. We want pastoralism as an occupation to be one which everybody can be proud of. And in that context, I want to urge the leaders to lead in the reinvestment in pastoralism by becoming real pastoralists yourself.
This is a meeting of its kind in our region. It is the first meeting that has brought together MCAs, the speakers, members of the National Assembly, the senators, the deputy governors, the national government leadership, and our strategic partners, all driven by unity of purpose. The commonality of our problems and opportunities is what has glued us together as pastoralist communities in Kenya.
Hii ni muhimu zaidi tuweze kuwa hapa tuwe tunajadiliana mkutano wetu wa kwanza. Kila mara wabunge wafugaji wanakutana peke yao, na hiyo sauti Kenya ingine inasema haitoshi. Magavana wanakutana peke yao, hiyo sauti inadharauliwa. Garissa inatoa msimamo peke yake, hiyo sauti inadharauliwa. Turkana vile vile inazungumza, inasemekana ni watu chache na mbuzi kidogo. Leo tukiwa viongozi ya wafugaji, ni mzuri tutoe mpangilio maalum na tujipange kwa wafugaji. Tukiwa tumegawanyika inatupa shida.
We are proud as pastoralists to come for the first time. This is a good opportunity for us as pastoralists. We have to join together to speak for the interests and aspirations of our communities.
I wish to thank the host, the Governor of Garissa, and all persons in attendance for convening here to discuss seminal matters affecting Kenya's pastoralist counties and the nation as a whole. The theme of this year's conference, Cohesion, on how to counter the radicalization of youth in the region, is timely and apt. As a nation, Kenya stands as a shining beacon of democracy and liberty in the region and in the continent, a testimony that our people can be strong, prosperous, and free while retaining their African cultural identity, heritage, and values within the modern world. It is my profound pleasure and humble duty to declare this conference officially.
We want to be part and parcel of the people who will defend our national security. We will stand with the President and the Deputy President of the government in making sure that our nation is safe.
There is a big gap between security agencies and communities. And we feel like VE is costing Kenya great deal of both human and material resources. Lamu, Kiwayu, a mosque cannot be built just because of insecurity. Tukitokezea pahali sisi we are treated like Al-Shabaab.
We have a serious issue of extrajudicial disappearances and extrajudicial killings. In this county of Garissa, between January and now, we have 14 people who have disappeared. They have never been taken to any police or any institution that we know, neither to a court. And in my constituency, for example, in the last 2 years, we have close to 20 people who are missing. We would like to know who is this force accountable. Extrajudicial killings and disappearances are counterproductive in terms of fighting terrorism. I want to say we can only fight terrorism legally, not with an illegality.
The issues of radicalization. We must reject profiling of radicalization as our community problem. It is a global problem, it is a national problem. But we have a problem within our community. The governors here, the members of parliament here are the main problem when it comes to cattle wrestling. When these animals are stolen, they are taken within our county, within our constituencies.
We experience a lot of challenges in our region, emanating from really not a communal conflict, but the cattle rustling, the stealing of the cow. There is peace in Barin, it's only the stealing of the cow.
We are fighting among ourselves, cattle rustling, fighting, killing people. Can we, as a resolution of this meeting, say that going forward, we will never fight, we will never cattle rustle, so that, we pacify our region. Otherwise, we are not going to actually deal with the issues that are serious. We are fighting for our space in Kenya. We can't, because we are actually pulling ourselves backwards.
We have to realize cattle rustling and security around the cattle people can only be found if you understand and study the people themselves. We need to kill this story about the cattle rustling. Can we study how the communities used to solve their conflict about the cow and modernize and make the techniques better today? There was no gun those days when they used to steal, but elders used to meet and sort it out. Now that there is a gun brought by the government because you allowed it to come illegally to Kenya and it's now illegal in the hands of the people, so the national government, you have failed. How can a gun move from your regime, either through the boundaries of the international boundaries, to the hand of some illiterate person? You failed somewhere. You are supposed to have provided total security 24 hours, 7 days a week.
National government is not in charge of security in those areas. Even though they have so many policemen, they are not. They don't care. What makes cattle rustling to thrive is the issue of revenge. People kill each other. They take away the animals. We need to put the infrastructure way forward. We need to enforce the law to arrest culprits so that this thing can come to a stop.
We've been known for violence, but I thank God, of late we are not fighting. Cohesion has been found. We are living at peace now.
So what is wrong if we relocate some Rendiles to come and settle in Garissa, and some in Mandera, and some in Wajir, and we will still retain our constitutional service? Is there anything wrong with that?
We've never really got into the root causes of the problem. If we've actually done that, then we wouldn't have been having a recurrence of ethnic animosities and skirmishes all over the counties of northern Kenya. What we're actually doing is to try and have a ceasefire between the parties in conflict.
The government is the number one grabber. It's as if the government is on a mission to grab our land because of major projects. It's because of development projects, because of things like LAPSET, which have hived off big chunks. The government is treating pastoralist land as if it's free land to be acquired without compensation to the communities. They don't compensate rangelands, they don't compensate livelihoods, they don't compensate biodiversity. The value of our land is the livelihood it provides us, is the rangeland it provides for our animals.
Sisi kama wafugaji ni muhimu sana tuweke sheria na tuipitishe sheria ya kulinda ardhi yetu, kwa sababu ardhi yetu ndio sasa inaotewa sana, inaotewa na wale ambao wanajua umuhimu wa ardhi. Ni serikali ndio imefamia hasa kupitia kwa jeshi. Ardhi yetu ya Isiolo hasa Central, ile ardhi imeenda sana nyingi sana, ni jeshi ndio wako naye, na hiyo ni kwa sababu kwamba ni ardhi ambayo ilikuwa inaishi na inakaa hivyo. Sasa jeshi ilikuja tu ikafamia akakuta wananchi huko, akasongesha na imechukua ardhi kubwa sana. Jeshi inataka iende upande ya boda, kama ni upande wa Somalia, kama ni upande wa Ethiopia, huko jeshi haitakikani wakuje katikati ya wananchi, mahali ambao wananchi wanachunga mali zao, mahali ambao yuko katikati ya watu. Jeshi waende wafanya kazi ile imeandikiwa bonda huko. Ngozi tujaribu namna kuweza kuweka sheria. Ikawa tunajua kwamba mko wachache kwa hiyo bunge. Hata kama mko wachache tuko na Mungu, kwa sababu haki yetu lazima itafanyika.
The Asal region, the northern part of this country, is well endowed with the natural resources, minerals, oil and all that. Pastoralist areas, we are talking about livestock. So there's a need to harness all these resources by providing a second corridor. And this is why we are having a corridor being built from the new Lamu port that we are constructing, then traversing 9 counties, all of which, except Meru, that are all pastoralist land. We have the highways, we have the railway, we'll have the oil pipelines, both crude and the product oil pipeline. We want to acquire land that these infrastructure projects will be laid. And what we want to acquire is a 500 meters wide corridor. And then we are also working with the counties. And we've had several meetings, stakeholder meetings, since the counties came into being, where we want to have an outer corridor, where we have about 50 kilometers on either side of the 500 meters, being a control area.
I want you first of all to understand that as the leadership of these counties where LAPSSET passes through, we support this project 100%. We want it like yesterday, because it will open up that part of the world. It will connect us to Ethiopia, and that is a very big opportunity. But some of the things you've said here, I hope it was a slip of the tongue when you're saying you need 50 kilometers either side. If some guys in the office misled you, tell them to tell it to the bats, because there is no 50 kilometers you can get from anywhere. That will mean the whole of Moyale will go. It's not even enough. You will look for another town to pass that thing. It's not possible.
LAPSSET should not come anywhere, community land, until we register the community land, if that's what they want from us, so that we have the legal right to negotiate with them. Also, it has to be understood that that land is ours. Whatever resources are on it, below it or above it, are ours.
LAPSSET is another cash cow for the corrupt people, the corrupt big people in this country. If Kasuku was here, I would have asked him to table the maps of LAPSSET, and you people will be shocked. Actually, that is where we should start. We should be told how many maps are there for LAPSSET, and you people will appreciate that the plan has been hatched in the boardroom to take the idle land.
Actually, we are in trouble as pastoralists, and as far as LAPSSET is concerned. I just Googled who are the board members of LAPSSET. There's no representation of pastoralists, and that's basically where decisions are made. If really the LAPSSET, we are not going to be involved as pastoralists, we can actually say, let it even stay. In any case, we have survived. all those years.
I've heard Mheshimiwa refer to compulsory acquisition, and she made it sound like it is different from compensation. Actually, if it is compulsory, it doesn't mean that because it is compulsory, you don't get paid. No, that's not what it means. Compulsory acquisition just means that this land will go to government for public purposes, and you will be compensated for it. And the compensation will be prompt, will be just. For community land, I can honestly tell you we really struggled on how to value community land. Wherever infrastructure of that type passes through community land, we know that that land will belong to some community. And the definition of community, what is community is diverse. It can be ethnic, it can be just a group of people who decide they want to stay together. Since the community land bill became law in 2016, we have had a struggle in the establishment or in the enactment of the legislation or regulations that will operationalize it. This came only, I think, a couple of months ago, about 2 months ago or so. And this is a copy I have here for everybody to see. And there are not very many copies, so I was lucky to have this one. In it, it says how it should be done. The first thing that needs to happen is for the communities themselves to establish themselves as communities and be registered as a community. They have to define the area they want and how they will come together. That will be up to them. And the counties will be involved in helping them formulate that. And then they have to register as a community, and then they will register the land to themselves. There will be a community land registrar in every county. That's what the law says. But we haven't even started doing that. There's not a single community land that has been registered in this country yet.
County spatial planning is the anchor to county integrated development plan. We are in the second generation of the county government. None of our FCDC counties has embarked on county spatial planning. And the whole essence of the county spatial planning is to be able to locate for us what we have on our land, what resources are lying under, over, because all that is defined as land in the Constitution. How are you going to be negotiating because you don't know what is on your land?
Mobility is what's most critical to pastoralists. It's not land for land's sake. So we see people cordoning off land and saying land. Yes, we want national development. But if the national development is actually distracting and destroying the grazing patterns of pastoralists, then we are going to be having IDPs within pastoralists.
Review of boundaries and review of wards and constituencies. That is a very important exercise. In fact, if it is going to be done in a cavalier manner, you know that some people will want a constituency to be removed from one corner of the country and taken to another corner of the country. And the usual suspects who are going to be attacked are definitely in marginalized and pastoralist areas. I think we must make our position known in good time, that we are not going to accept any process that is going to reduce even a single inch of our constituencies in the pastoralist area. That position is not negotiable. We just want to tell anyone who has the imagination, and if there is anything that is going to be discussed insofar as constituency is concerned, is to add, not to reduce.
The Commission's mandate of delimiting boundary units is set out in Article 89 of the Constitution, which is to review the names and boundaries of Constitution at intervals of not less than 8 years and not more than 12 years. The same provision provides that any review of electoral boundaries shall be completed at least 12 months before a general election of members of Parliament. Since the last review was finalized in February 2012, the timeline for the next review is between early 2020 and to 2024. It is important to note that one of the key criteria in delimitation exercise is population, and therefore the boundary review must be preceded by a national census, which is conducted by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Statutory procedure for the conduct of referenda is actually governed by Constitution and provisions of sections 49 to 55 of the Elections Act.
The IEBC is not an initiator of a referendum, but a facilitator. Ideally, if we are to look at any referendum, before we even undertake any changes to the Constitution, we have had our Constitution since 2010. We should have conducted an audit of implementation of that Constitution so that we are in a position to know what is it exactly that we are having a referendum on. This debate has unfortunately been missed, and it appears that there are other considerations that are going on, and therefore I would urge the FCDC counties, the leadership of these counties, to come together and interrogate the 2010 Constitution and isolate issues that affect them as communities and ensure that those issues are addressed in whatever referenda that will be presented before them going forward.
And we will defend each and every constituency, every ward and every county. Hatuwezi kubali, na mimi nataka wanisikie leo, hatuwezi kubali tupoteze wodi moja, constituency moja na margin ya county yetu. We either have one united country, or we are told everybody now is in the whole government. In fact, we can ask for federalism, so that everybody takes his piece. You take your piece, you go enjoy it and run it. Now here the referendum, the only question that we will support as of now, the Deputy President, is to bring more resources to the counties. We want 70% of the audited accounts ikuje counties. Na county governments wapewe pesa yao kulingana na sheria. Hii mambo ya county governments wanapewa pesa kama Panadol. Wanagawa. And then you see somebody saying their governors are not doing any development. How do they do development when you're only sending them recurrent?
The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics have gone on the ground, they have surveyed, and actually your policy is to take census of settled communities. You have already made your decision, in my view. You have already said that in a specific county, there are a certain number of households. And you have taken that number as where you will go and count people. Which means now you already concluded that you have a certain number of households. So you eliminate other people, the others who are not in that group.
Have you done a benchmarking for pastoralist communities census in other countries that have pastoralists? You know, there are a number of them in Africa. So we want to understand, have they conducted census before? What are the best practices? And are you going to follow that? Because the thing is that how you conduct census in a pastoralist community is not the same as people who are settled and don't move.
What will happen during the census time? Those Kenyans in the refugee camp, will they be identified as Kenyans or as refugees? If our people are going to move from Garissa to Isiolo, does the boundary move, or those people are the ones who have moved to Isiolo? Or if people have moved from Mandera to Marsabit, that is Moyale, has the boundary moved, or it is the people who have moved to Marsabit? You've not done any planning, you've not done public participation, you've not done civic education, you've not prepared the pastoral communities to come back and join an already existing settlement for you to map. Now they are up and about. What strategic planning have you put in place to make sure that these pastoral communities, since census is an exhaustive counting of persons, what strategic direction have you put in place to carry out massive civic education, particularly in these pastoral areas, from one settlement to the other, to tell them the importance of being counted as a population? You've not done that. You have already commenced the issue of doing mapping exercise, and people have not been adequately informed. The issue becomes your processes have not complied with the requirement of Kenyan Constitution.
So we need you to plan proper before you go into census exercise. And I agree with the governor properly that that exercise needs to be completely and holistically planned for properly for the pastoralist community.
The government, through the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have been doing planning for the census. A number of activities have been undertaken, including the mapping of almost all the counties. We have only 3 more counties remaining. We have mapped northeastern counties. We have mapped Mandera County. Even Garissa has been mapped. And I believe that all preparations are ready for the census. Undertaking of the census is not by foreigners. Undertaking of the census is by the locals. And the Bureau is putting in place issues to ensure that all the locals are involved. We have been doing planning at the national level, but very soon, I think from next month, we'll be rolling down to the county committees where all the leaders will be involved so that we can discuss how best can we get accurate figures for our counties and our communities. During the census, we'll also collect information of livestock, which is key to this region. And of course, those who are managing livestock will be able to know how many of which type of livestock are we managing. If possible, you can also collect on the dynamics of their movements so that you can also plan for all that.
We must take it very seriously as pastoral communities. I know August is normally a dry season. People migrate from place to place and sometimes even to neighboring countries. We must make sure that our people come back.
Go out of our way, think outside the box to ensure that every pastoralist is enumerated. Because on the basis of that number, of those numbers, resource allocation and many other things will have a bearing. And therefore, I want to persuade you as leaders in the pastoralist areas, my good people, there should not be pointing fingers, there should not be blame game, there should not be excuses, there should not be any reason. We must be at the table to make sure that the right instruments are put in place, the right mechanisms are implemented, and every pastoralist and every tenant be enumerated. Marginalization started when there was that session paper number 10 of 1965, which recognized high potential area to be allocated more resources. And in their understanding, the high potential area meant agricultural areas at the expense of other areas. And agricultural areas mean mboga, mahindi, maharagwe. Yet the rest of Kenyans, which is 75%, are endowed with underground resources, including petroleum and other minerals. Imagine us putting a lot of resources on mbogas, forgetting the oil in Turkana, forgetting the underground resources that are endowed in the pastoralist communities. We need to change this narrative.
And today we launch this fund. Kenya shilling 6 billion has been allocated to it for the financial year 2015-2016, that is this financial year, and that is 0.8% of the last audited revenues approved by the National Assembly. And this is indeed an improvement on the minimal constitutional requirement of 0.5%. Not a single penny here will go to recurrent expenditure. We are going to put this money into capital projects.
Equalization fund was an intervention agreed when we were negotiating, essentially to help large constituencies and marginalized areas catch up with the rest of the country as far as infrastructure is concerned. So it was supposed to start in the budget year 2010-2011 up to now. It has a sunset clause of 20 years and 0.5% of ordinary revenue going to marginalized areas for purposes of infrastructure. In our calculation, to date, that fund should have had 45.4 billion shillings. So far, only 900 million has been utilized. Only about 12 billion has been appropriated.
I want to celebrate with all my fellow colleagues the promulgation of the 2010 Constitution that has reversed that trend. And for the first time, we feel part of this country because a formula has come that somehow allocates resources and makes us like other parts of Kenya. Now, 10 years after enjoying this, there is now a new wave. A new wave to reverse this trend through various formulas of CARA, through referendum, through new initiatives of definition for marginalization. New definitions are now coming up for the word marginalization. It has moved from the older dealing with matters that has affected us because of that sessional paper. Now it has been tweaked, a new meaning has come up. All these are now initiatives to reverse the 10 years that we have seen some semblance of being Kenyans. And I think today, this gathering is a very important one. It's an awakening time for us as pastoralists, as communities that were described as marginalized. I think the only way we can stand our ground is if we unite, we form a political party, and we are able to fight for our rights. And I think this is a political issue, and it requires a political solution.
Equalization Fund is the creation of the Constitution under the Article 204 that has been mentioned earlier. But it is anchored in our national development agenda, and that is why we take it as an agenda in the PPG and as well as FCDC. Equalization Fund is public money to accelerate development for the communities, for the communities that were left behind since the colonial times and past colonial times. Pastoralists communities need to be integral part of any development. CRS review of equalization fund requires constant engagements on the arid lands and communities. The funds have not been released to serve the purpose it has been aimed for. Appropriation began 2013-2014 financial year, but only 1 billion out of the 14 billion commitment over the past 5 years has been released. Where is this money for?
The Equalization Fund, they only released it the first year. Equalization Fund is what we fought for. I was in Parliament that time, 2010, right? The 10th Parliament. When the clamor for the new constitution, the people with more population were saying, one man, one vote. Those of us who don't have as many numbers used to say 1 kilometer, one vote. And so that we could bridge between the two, Equalization Fund was set in the Constitution. It is shameful up to today. The national government has not found it necessary to release those funds. In fact, they are attempting it to divert to other uses. It is very sad. Some bodies in the national government are undermining what the Constitution has given us through some reckless formulas where every day they try to gerrymander with what has been set in the Constitution because they are realizing that a lot of funds are going to these people and they don't deserve. We want to say that we are awake, we are watching, we will fight until the end. Revenue of this country is going up every year. Through that proposed formula, revenue to these counties has gone down drastically. For example, in Marsabit, our allocation this year has gone down by not less than 400 billion Kenya shillings. And that is the same for all the rest of our counties. This, as FCDC governors, we have come together, we have said we will fight it until the end, even if it means the cause, and we have already instructed lawyers to ensure that they take up that matter.
Equalization, Your Excellency, under Article 204 is not a favor. You are part and parcel of the people who are the framers of the Constitution. Both in spirit and letter, the Equalization Fund in the Constitution was for specific counties in water, in energy, in roads, so that we catch up with the rest of Kenya. But because there's a commission called CRA, there is this story of population. And I ask myself, a country is composed of two parameters. One is land, the other one is population. So if you think about population, then the land must be the first one for you to have people to live. So myself and Mahmoud, those and the engineer and Chachu Gaja, who are in the and Honorable Nanok, who are in the 10th Parliament, the story of 1 kilometer, 1 vote, we are starting from tomorrow. Come with your people, we will come with the acres of land. That is the story. And you cannot bulldoze us that because your people are many, and then you tell us we take the back seat. No way, we will not allow it. And this time round, Your Excellency, a time will come when I will be the patron of the PPG and not the leader of majority. A time will come so that I must stand with the people.
I want to tell anyone who thinks that they are going to joke with us because we are marginalized areas, they must know today that we are not visitors in Kenya. We are born, brought up, and part and parcel of Kenya. And under the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, we are not asking or requesting their favor. We are demanding development as a right. We are using rights-based approach to development in our region.
Education sector in the nomadic regions is literally a crisis. The situation is so endemic that we are in ICU in matters education. There are some counties which are actually below 30% in terms of access, below 30% in terms of retention, below 40% in terms of transition, and below 40% in terms of the completion rates. And this is none other than the Monte counties, the ones with pure aridities. Ownership of schools by the local communities is not there. And that's why we have got a big problem in terms of supervision, in terms of follow-up of our children, in terms of supporting the teachers and supporting the head of institutions in the discipline of our children. The children are so important in the labor system of the community, they are needed to look after the cows. And that the only time they can begin their classes is in the evening when they bring back the animals from herding. So to what extent is the Kenya curriculum available for these Kenyans teachers close shop at 5? So what does it portend now for a child who has been looking after the cows and is now ready for lessons at 5, from 5? Now that he's brought back the animals, or very early in the morning before he goes looking after the animals. So flexibility in the curriculum, flexibility of the school timetable, harsh climatic conditions, this has actually been responsible. And these context-specific issues were never addressed by the policy makers of this country with regard to education.
Education system that we currently enjoy and we have enjoyed over the years does not seem to work for us, particularly people of pastoral communities. Can we define other ways so that we can be able to have skill-based curriculum which has been folded, so that we can be able to have a policy or a legislation that seems to work for us as pastoral communities? Or are we comfortable with what we have? This government has rolled out a policy of 100% transition. 100% transition means any child who has sat for Kenya Certificate of Primary Education to go to secondary school. Has this government made enough provision for in terms of infrastructure improvement, for in terms of books, for in terms of teachers? Has there been sufficient public participation on this government policy which has been initiated? These are critical issues. This is a government that is developing policies without sufficient participation with us.
County governments must invest deliberately if we don't have to stare at mass failures in the future and current generation. We have to do something about it. Education sector is so critical to many factors. Protection of these youth, issues of counter-radicalization, it is a matter of continuity from primary to secondary to college to university is something that is of primary concern for us.
At the moment, as the government of Kenya, we have made two steps. Number one, we have made it mandatory for every child to go to school. We have made it mandatory for every child to go to standard 1. Compulsory free primary education. We have stepped it up to compulsory free day secondary school. We still have a very serious challenge of transition from primary to secondary in early and semi-early years. I want to persuade the leadership of our pastoral communities that part of the equality we are looking for and the greatest empowerment we can give to any society is the empowerment through education. I want us to spare no effort. I want us to spare no effort in making sure that every child goes to school and every child transits from standard 8 to Form 1. You must take the step to make sure that you provide the resources and you provide the human capital to be trained so that every child in northern Kenya has the opportunity to go to school like every other child in the rest of the Republic of Kenya.
The livestock is the most important resource that we have known all our lives in these pastoral areas. Livestock will continue to be the most important resource until otherwise we discover other resources like what Turkana has just discovered. But still, that is also just a small portion. Livestock will still continue to be the most important resource in Turkana. Livestock accounts for about 15% of the national GDP. The agriculture, since you all know that agriculture is the mainstay of the Kenya's economy, we again contribute 42% agricultural gross domestic products are from livestock.
If we can streamline the livestock sector in this country, pastoralists can even support the government by giving them loans. Because when you look at the number of lives that we have in this country, I'm sure it can finance a road from Mandera all the way to Nairobi.
Kenya has a huge market for livestock products. It's a net importer of livestock. A lot of Kenya's policies are focused on export. Export is possible, but it's expensive. You have to put in all the veterinary regulations, movement control to enable export. But at the same time, with drawing in animals from the region, we need to focus on the local market first. The market that is really going to support the general population is the local market, and we need to invest in that market.
The livestock is a gold mine if the systems change to commercial pastoralism. Commercial pastoralism is where, instead of keeping animals for long, you would decide to concentrate on finishing, or I'm going to concentrate on producing 1 year old, or I'm going to concentrate on producing 2 years old, and that goes to a particular market.
We look at what is required to make a certain market system work better, so that the people participating in that market system can on a commercial basis operate, produce, sell, and get the profits required to improve their lives, to reinvest and so on. Because many times it is just constraints and some barriers that need to be addressed to make those market systems work.
Policies and politics affect trader decisions and trade directions. The decisions we make about livestock trade affects how traders make their decisions. We have in the last 5 years or 7 years of the devolution, proliferation of abattoirs across the pastoral region. And this, I must say, is a very sad story. It is sad because we are not aware of what is going on in Ethiopia and in Somaliland. They have gone far much ahead of us. For the northern regions, for all our governors, I don't think we need abattoirs. We need 1 or 2 abattoirs that will tap into the regional livestock resource.
Women are powerful people. We are the pillars of this country and in our societies. When we talk of early marriages, it is not just the business of women and their daughters. It involves men. The guys who get married to our young girls are the men who we represent. We also have the issue of FGM. We should overcome some of these challenges.
The old primitive matters of FGM, which we must get the hell out of. It's nonsense. Really. We must get out of that and move to the rest of Kenya.
Kenya's youth are the future. And I'm not saying this lightly because we all say, oh, the youth are the future. But the reality is that your country is 18 years old. That's the median age of your country. The problem is that the median age of your farmer is 62.
Youths and drugs. For us, even in Marsabit, in the past, we'll hear very few people dealing with drugs. But nowadays, most of our youths are into the drugs. We have border trade that's on, the pikis around. And most of our youths are either involved in alcohol, miraa, and bank now as we speak. These are the leaders we are expecting tomorrow to lead us. These are people's husbands and people's wives. If today they are not taken care of, their issues are not well addressed, then the future is not there for us. Unemployment of youth, idleness,
Na mambo ya kutafutia watu kazi, Your Excellency, sisi kama wafugaji tunasema hapana. If a civil servant will retire and go home at 65 years, then there is no point for anybody to seek for an employment at 65 years. Hiyo naye tutasema hapana.
We have agreed to work together as a vibrant and strong new progressive community in Kenya. The pastoralists are not anymore referred to as small ethnic groups.
Comprising of the 15 counties have resolved to work and support the government in effective and accountable protection of our country. We want to see an end to inter and intra-community conflict by directly investing time and resources, as well as all cross-border conflicts in our areas. We have achieved a lot in managing issues of terrorism and radicalization, and we want to see an end to this issue by cascading it to all other counties. The leadership and the entire community will invest in deliberately making sure that pastoral communities come out in large numbers by mitigating issues to do with pasture and water beforehand on those days that census are going to take place in August. We've resolved to do deliberate investment of time, energy and resources in order to make sure that we protect our youth.
The youth agenda must be fast-tracked both at county levels and national government level. We focus youth agenda because unemployment, idleness is what is giving room to people to lure our youngsters to radicalism, Al-Shabaab and such like groups.
We will work with the national government, with all stakeholders to make sure that Al-Shabaab will not have a foothold in our counties. We will be part and parcel of those who will protect the national security interests of our country. We value the lives of Kenyans, we value our country. We will not allow any of our 15 counties to be merged. We know the value of devolution. We voted for the 2010 Constitution because of, number one, devolution, and number two, those of us who are Muslims, because of the Qadi's court. So devolution is the savior of the pastoralist. We suffered under a centralized system of government. We will defend devolution. We are putting on notice the Minister for National Treasure. You cannot violate the Constitution. You cannot violate the PFM Act 2012. The money that is lying in the National Treasury, close to 45 billion, we will ask you to start sending that money to our counties so that it has projects and it will change the lives of our people. We will not allow impunity. Our first question as pastoralists from 15 counties, we will file a question on the referendum if it comes on how to increase the resources that will come to the counties from the current 15% to 70%. We will do an affirmative action as leaders to make sure that we have more teachers, we have more colleges in our region.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for hosting us. Kenya and Saudi Arabia enjoy a great relationship. It was difficult for me when I came really to strengthen more because the relations is quite very strong. However, we have worked closely hand by hand with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with other ministry, and Saudi Arabia is going to support Kenya in the 4 agenda and any other projects might need it in the future.
When you have the smallest budget in the livestock sector, when you have our veterinarians only doing livestock conservation on emergency level, I think we are not prioritizing and we are not strategic in our animals. And we always talk about gold mine in the livestock sector. We have to rethink how we do business. We need to engage at policy level, institutional level, and if we talk about livestock fattening, it is good that it teaches the pastoralists to see the animals as well, but we cannot force it. It has to be a process that is so natural that they can see wealth in the animals and that they can invest in the land and that they can produce their own fodder.
To try and improve the productivity of dairy cattle. A simple collar that tells you when your cow is on heat or not and when it's ready for insemination. We'll also look at a different collar for remote areas that's more about location tracking. So you can track your cattle and be alerted if anybody cuts a collar or anybody takes the cattle out of a certain area. How can you export products if you can't keep them cool? Whether horticultural, whether they're meat. How can you transport products that need to be kept cool, such as vaccines or other products? So this is a technology solution that doesn't need any power.
We are even beyond ICU. We are actually dead in the education sector. The teachers who are sent to northern Kenya are not even in the school. Do you know they do business? All of them have border borders. All of them have kiosks. And then time on task. How much of the time that they're in class, the 40, 45 minutes, do they actually spend in actual teaching?
If you look at, I'm not talking about Western Europe, I'm talking only about the Asian tigers. I'm talking about countries like Singapore, Malaysia, China, South Korea. All these countries progressed when women joined the workforce, which meant that every woman was allowed to achieve her full human potential. She was not cut, there was no FGM done, she was not married at the age of 11. If we get the 2/3 gender bill pushed through, if we make sure that every woman is allowed equal opportunity in the workforce, trust me, Kenya's economy will grow to the double digits. So here is once again, I have an opportunity to say this to the Deputy President, to Honorable Arun Duale. Let's push for the 2/3 gender bill. This is what will change everything for Kenya.
As much as we are looking into the land reform agenda into this country, but we look into the legal, but also look at the peculiar issues which the sessional paper number 3 of 209 mentioned the issue of the peculiarity on pastoralism and how it needs to really be brought up into discussion. And it stated some few recommendations which were captured within our 2010 constitution. And one of the recognition is the aspect of community land. Wherever there is a right, there is a responsibility. And that is where even us as members of public, we've really failed into. I know the leaders are really trying to push for some aspects, but we need to have masses. We all already know that the sovereign power of this country lies with the people.
Initiation of the summit is a great idea to put the pastoralist community and then the frontier county together to form a very strong voice to push the socio-economic development of the county. And then we have also seen a great commitment from the political leaders. This forum have really provided a platform for a really, all part of the political system coming together to drive the same agenda.
I drove from Turkana all the way to Garissa, mostly because I wanted to understand what's on this side of the country, especially from a pastoralist background. It's a very great idea, bringing all the issues. So it's a pastoralist issue, it's not a region-based issue. So that was the perfect, thinking around it. But the other side was, I think, the issues that the pastoralist community and the pastoralist leadership face are so many, and trying to put them all in a two-day conversation is a little bit overwhelming.
We are planning a Kenya Land Conference. It's not just a conference, but it's supposed to be a marker, kind of a scorecard to look at where Kenya is in terms of the implementation of all the beautiful laws we had, including the National Land Policy and the Constitution of Kenya.
We were quite excited that it happened in Garissa. The particular reason for that, or the pertinent reason for that, is because we find that we have come down to the community. We have come down to where the tire meets the tarmac. In that sense that we have come to feel and touch the reality on the ground about pastoralists and their livelihoods and their lives. And therefore, we have realized that we are all commonized by one particular reason. It is about improving the lives of our society. And that is why we all traveled all the way from Nairobi to Garissa, the northern region.
We have driven pride in hosting PLS, and there's general excitement. And even people are talking of even next bidding for the Liberation Conference to be brought to Garissa.
We have had very good discussions. The turnout of the leaders was impressive. We had very good resolutions. This conference brought us together as a show of unity. Above anything else, that pastoralist leaders can join hands, and we say that unity is strength. So with this kind of strength, which has been demonstrated by leadership that is ready to join hands and to join ideas and to have the resolve to solve some of the challenges that our community has.